Hi. Uh, we're back. We're back in my FL Studio. So, yeah. Like I said, I'm going to do another FNF song tutorial. I do not know how it's going to go, because at the moment I'm I'm kinda tired. But I'm going to do my best and actually cook something up. I've upgraded a lot in the way that I compose. So, do mind this requires basic to advanced knowledge of how FL Studio works. And yeah. So what I usually start with right now at the moment when I make FNF songs is to pick what characters I want to use. So I'm just going to pull up SliceX. If you didn't see what I was doing there, I clicked this, and then I just did SliceX, which is there. Oh, right, you can't see that because I am not streaming my full screen, but that doesn't matter. What chromatic should we use? I'm just gonna use, my Garfield chromatic because I do not know what else I can use. That's the wrong one. Thank you. And then boyfriend. I'm not gonna use my own. I'm using the normal one. Alright. Now I've chosen that. Now, what I typically do is that I usually either shrink this or make it bigger. And this, I'm gonna make it smaller this time. Right click, change color, and then just pick some random ass color. Or I just click, right click, and just press random color. So I'm just gonna.
2 hours later.
Garfield first. I'm just gonna slap on a bunch of effects. Let's start with Sungizer. OTT. I don't really know what the time knob does. Delay. Oh yeah, on the vocal bus, I have you can't see that. Hold on. There, I have EQ, and it looks like this. For BF, I have pre-assigned effects right here. It's Goodizer, Soundgoodizer, Flangus, EQ, EOTT, Delay, and Maximus. That's basically it. And I'm going to pan you to the left. Now, let's begin with bass. I'm just gonna use Flex. So, Essential Bass plugins, that's downloadable if you own FL Studio like I do. If you don't, then cry about it. What else? Oh yeah, which one am I gonna use? I'm just gonna use, no, not that one. Not that one. That could, yeah, that can work. Sign into the third mixer preset, mixer track, sorry. And, 3. I have my own bass preset, which is this, and this. Mixing, okay, I'm just gonna say this. Mixing in general is something that I have. Just trust your ears when it comes to mixing. If you think it sounds good to your ears on like on your own, on its own, and it sounds good when you mix it all together, then it's good. It's good. It's then it's mixed well. The whole point of this is not a mixing tutorial. It's supposed to be how I make FNF songs. And now it's time to do that. So we'll start with bass. Label that. Drag in pattern 1. Double click. And now it's time for arrangement. I'm just going to be in Explorer mode just like last time. Okay, that actually doesn't sound too bad. Alright, breakdown time. When I write bass lines, usually I just decide... Usually I first scroll through notes until I find a key that I want. And by key then, I mean I just scroll through the notes until I find a root note that I find fitting to the kind of song I want to make, and the root note is the one that they basically decides what key the song is. The root note is basically just, for example, if this is the root note, then the song could either be in C major or C minor, or something like that. I don't know. I'm getting a music theory mode here, but anyway, when I write bass lines, usually I just spew things onto the keyboard. I just try and write something that I think sounds funky or fitting or just rhythmic. I just try to find something that I think sounds cool, and then I build the song from on top of that. So, now we have a bass line. That's great. I usually start with instrumentals, and then I do vocals afterward, by the way. I'm actually going to move it a little bit to the right to make a little intro. So now I'm going to make some drums. For drums, I'm going to actually use Contact, because Contact has a lot of good instruments. And I'm going to use Studio Drummer. Session kit. Session kit's the shit. Alright. Also, save every time. Whenever you add something new, or just whenever you just do something risky, or are about to do something risky, or have done something that you really don't want to lose, immediately hit Control S and save the project. But if you do not own FL Studio like I do, then you can't do that. So if you're on trial, then cry about it. You can't save your music, or okay, you can save your music, but you can't reopen it, which is kind of a bummer. But that's just another reason to buy this amazing DAW, or at the very least, just crack it. You do you. I can't stop you. Anyway, what do we name this? Tutorial song. Take 2. If you're wondering what that pop-up was, that's because I'm using... that's because of these two. They are very large in size. They're over 100 megabytes in size. So when I try to save, it tells me, hey, this project contains this amount of data in plugin instances, and then it shows me this. That's because together they make up more than 100 megabytes, which means they get kinda hefty. Also, if you do not use this kind of BF chromatic, which I do actually recommend you do, then you can either use a sound font, or you could do what the cool kids do and use direct wave. Because that works too. Anyway, now drum arrangement. So, alright. For drums, it depends on... Okay, so, if it's metal drums, then these are the settings that I use. OTT, I use OTT on a lot. Soundgoodizer, specifically the C version, or C model, whatever. This in EQ. Shit. And I also use Transient Shaper, and this in Reverb. And I use the Drum Room preset. So that's what I use for metal drums. And for non-metal drums, it's a lot simpler. It's just this in a compressor, and this in EQ. Same EQ, but just with a compressor instead of OTT. Because I don't know why. And I'm just going to do that. And... Oh. Oops. I did not mean to do that. There. You go back to normal. There we go. Alright. Drums. You're now going to watch me go into Explorer mode again. Alright, breakdown time again. When writing drums, usually I just play back the drums along with whatever else I've done with the instrumental, and I decide, can I make this part hit a little harder in the drums? Or can I make this sound a little groovier? Or can I make this fit better in pacing? Or something like that. Really, when I write drums, just again, like with bass, I barf stuff out onto the piano roll, and I decide, hey, that sounds kind of cool and stuff. That mostly when I just make music, I barf stuff out onto the program. But I also need to make sure that, especially with drums, that I do not always use the same velocity on everything, because that can make it sound a bit off in volume, like something can drown out the rest, and so I often use velocity changes to balance stuff. Or I use velocity changes, especially in drums, to make certain notes be more audible or hit harder, if that makes sense. In fact, in this case... Oh, and also, this is very typical when I make music. I very commonly make it build up, and then hit something big, and then calm down a little, then slowly build up again, and then that's how that usually is done when I make music. In this case, I've done something similar. This starts, with the normal groove, and then halfway, I add a little tom fill, or like little drum tom thing, and then in the end it kind of just climaxes with another drum fill, which is supposed to be the transition to the next part, and together it sounds like this. And when I hear it back sometimes in the instrumental, I realize that I could change this in the drums. And so I'm going to do that. Let me know if you hear something off when we get here. Hear anything that sounds a little off? That sounds a little off. And we can probably fix that by, for example, inching it a little bit to the left. No. And now I fixed something. And also, this transition seems like it's missing something. Maybe a little snare hit can work. Yeah, that kind of hit better, didn't it? At least to me. Now we have a bass line and we have drums. Now it's time for chords. Chords, as you know, are when notes are played together in a specific way. And writing chord progressions is often the most annoying part for me. But I still have fun with it when I can. I would say a guitar could work. So let's open up Flex again. Go into Essential Guitars and grab... Let's grab... this. That could work, couldn't it? Again, do not mind how I am organizing this. This is a personal thing. You don't need to follow along if you don't want to. Now, this is where fun begins when it comes to making music. Or some fun, I guess. At least for me. And that's mixing! Like, actually mixing, and not just adding pre-made presets that I made. And usually I immediately slap on an EQ. And what I do with an EQ, I mess with these until I find something that I think sounds nice. So, and by that I mean... just playing the instrument and messing with this while I'm doing so, until I find something that I think sounds nice. Like that. I think that sounds nice, but I'm also going to cut down on the high end a little bit. I think that sounds nice. So now, other effects. I use chorus and flanges a lot. And that's because I just like the sound of it. And I also use reverb and convolver a bit too much. Convolver. Why is that so difficult to say? I'm going to use convolver. And I always turn it down here, because it's often a bit too much. And I do the same with chorus, because chorus is often too much too, as well. So that sounds pretty neat, I guess. When you play it like that. So now I'm going to, now I'm just going to, you know, make a chord progression. So, I'll see you when I've done that. there we go. Now we've gotten a pretty decent start, I would say, on a song. And this is how I write chords. First, first I play back the song and I think, okay, what's the root note? And then I find the root note, which in this case is G. And then I make chords. I basically draw out notes that are in a chord that has G in it, such as, in this case, G minor. That's a G minor chord, which means that this song is going to be in G minor. And then every time the song like switches up the root note, like in this case it goes from G down to D sharp. And that's when I actually switch up the chords a little bit. It goes from G minor to G sus. And you might be wondering, what the hell is sus? Is this Among Us? No. Sus, in this case, is short for suspended. And I can link an entire video that actually kind of explains the sus chord to you. I'll link it in the description. You watch that. It's a good video. And basically, in this case, the chord progression is C minor. No, sorry. In this case, the chord progression is G minor, G sus, and then F sharp. And then F sharp major.
Bruh.
Then it goes back to G minor. Then it goes to G. Then it goes to, I don't really know what this chord is. I do not actually know what that is. I think it's like, is it like G minor 4? And then it goes back to F sharp major. And here, I actually add a little melody of sorts, or kind of like a flourish at the end of the chord. And it goes like... You may be wondering, why do you do that? I usually just like to write something to, like, finish off a chord progression if it sounds spicy and if I like it. That's just what I usually do with that. So now I've basically covered how I do bass, drums, and chords. So what's left? Well, let me actually just real quickly cook up a second section. Alright, now we have a second section ready, and now it's time for the lead. Oh, and we're also going to just quickly add a layer to the chords, because that's also something I do. I add layers to chords. So I'm going to add a piano, and for that I'm going to use this SRX keyboards, because I don't fucking know. Oh, and there's one more thing to mixing. Even though this guitar sounds good, you know what actually could make it sound a little bit better? A bit of stereo separation. You might hear that it sounds like a little wider now, in a way. Like it's spread out in both of your headphones. This will only work if you're wearing headphones. Without. With. Makes just that subtle difference that actually makes it sound kind of nice. And together. Also, for second parts, what I do is that I ramp up a little bit of the like intensity or catchiness of the patterns. So in the first half, the bass goes like this. A bit dragged out. But in the second half, it goes a little faster, in this case. The same goes for the drums. In the first half, it goes a bit chill. In the second half, it goes a bit faster. And with a few more added, like drum sounds. And in the chords, the first half, it sounds like this. The second half doesn't sound that much different, but it has a few extra notes. And the melody at the end is a bit different. First half. Second half. And you may also have heard, and if you paid attention, this note isn't exactly on beat in a way. Well, that's called syncopation, and it's when you add like a surprise change in the rhythm of a song. I can link a video to where they actually explain that a little too. You know, it's do-do-do-do, but instead of going, it instead goes. That's called syncopation. I'll link a video and I'll link to you a video that explains syncopation later. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, the lead. So the first half sounds like this right now. While that sounds fine, we could actually add something that plays like a melody in what I... Now that sounds fine, but I've now repeated that exact like pattern here, so this is a repeated version of this one, and here we can actually add something that plays a little melody, and here we can add something that plays a little and here we can add something that plays a little melody. So we're going to do that now, and I'm going to make it in 3OSC. If you're wondering how I did that, I pressed 3 on my keyboard and it opened up 3OSC. So, leads. The most common way that I make leads is that I smash together a square wave and I don't know what kind of wave this is. It's not a saw wave. This is a saw wave. It's something. I don't know. Sawtooth. That's what it's called. When I make leads, I usually smash together a square wave and a sawtooth wave. Like, yeah, basically. And I turn off the third oscillator. Because this is usually just a sine wave. And I do almost never use 3 waves at once. That sounds a bit meh, doesn't it? So what we can do is press this button here, go over here, and turn on polyphony. If that's how you pronounce it, I don't know. But I usually turn this knob up. What this does is this. It creates like a slide between notes. Without. With. Assigned its own mixer track, and now it's time to add a bunch of effects to it. First effect, OTT. Turn the depth down a little. I'm also going to pan it a bit to the right. Add flangus. Turn it down a little. Add delay. And that's really just all we can do with it. We can add more, but in this case, I'm not going to do that because you do not need to drown instruments and effects. If it sounds good, it sounds good. So now we're going to write a melody for this. I'm also going to make it a bit quieter, so it's like more in the back. Now, I'm going to give you 3 seconds to guess how I make melodies. And time's up. It's just like I do with bass lines. I barf stuff onto the piano roll. And in this case, it sounds like this. Yeah, that's all there is to it, and together with the instrumental, it doesn't sound half bad. Yeah, and I think that's basically what I'm going to do with the instrumental. So you know what that means? It's time for vocals. Which is basically the same as doing the lead in this case, but now we use more of something called slide notes. And what are slide notes? I'm going to show you after I've written a melody. Alright, I've now written a simple melody, so now I'm going to grab one of these short notes and press this button. And now, if I place it down like this, if you're wondering how I did that, I held Alt and clicked. This will happen. That's what a slide note is. So now I'm just going to put them out to make stuff like this. As an example. And also stuff like this. That's a kind of... That's sort of like a vibrato effect, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, kind of. So that's very common also to be used in FNF songs. So anyway, use slide notes in different ways to make the vocals sound a bit spiced up. That's just kind of what gives FNF vocals its charm. If it has stuff like, and stuff like, and maybe even stuff like, and maybe even stuff like, or maybe even stuff, or maybe even stuff like, then congratulations, you've done something that gives FNF vocals its charm. And now I'm going to be writing the last of the melodies, and then I think that's really all I wanted to say for this tutorial. I'm not very good at making tutorials, but I'll see you when we're done. Alright, now let's listen back to the song from beginning. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. If you watched to this point, then you are legendary, and I thank you a lot. But with that being said, I think that's all I really wanted to say for this video. If there's anything else you're wondering, that I would very much, then leave it in the comments. I'll try to answer as best as I can. I can't promise I will be able to in the best way, but I will try, okay? But now I don't have anything else to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!